Hey everyone, welcome back to Dan's Chess Lounge. So today I'm going to be continuing our coverage of Bobby Fischer, and today's game is going to be Fischer versus Bent Larsen in 1958. Fischer was young, he was only 15 years old, and he was trying to compete against the likes of Petrosian and uh, Larsen and Michael Tall. And so this tournament here was to see who was going to qualify for the 1959 Candidates Tournament. And the winner would go on to face Michael Botvinnik. So as before, I'm working out of the Bobby Fischer Rediscovered book by Andy Soltis. And I'm going to read a little bit of the excerpt before this game. He wrote, Fischer's mother, Regina, drew a revealing picture of him in a letter to the Yugoslav Chess Federation in early 1958. She asked the Yugoslavs to find room and board for her 15-year-old son while he adjusted to the Balkan climate in the weeks before the Interzonal at Portoroz. But she indicated Bobby had certain conditions that must be met. He would not give simultaneous exhibitions or interviews, and he didn't like journalists who asked non-chess questions about his private life. She volunteered to the Yugoslavs that Fischer didn't smoke, drink, or date girls, and doesn't know how to dance. But she added, he likes to swim, play tennis, ski, skate, etc. By the time of the Interzonal in August, Fischer had settled into other life habits. One of the chess journalists over there established an early rapport with the young American. He recalled how Bobby would analyze in his hotel room until the early a.m., sleep until noon, and rarely leave the room except to play. Fischer's start at the tournament was decidedly unimpressive. A first-round draw with White in 16 moves, followed by a swindle that turned a loss to the tournament tailwinder into a win. He had only an even score when he met Bent Larsen in round number 8. So with that said, let's go ahead and see what transpired over the board. Fischer was white. He started out with e4. Everyone knows that Fischer's saying is e4 is best by test. c5, knight f3, d6, and d4 we're going to have an open Sicilian. Knight takes d4, and g6. This is the start of the Sicilian dragon. And when you see the dragon, you know it's going to be some fireworks. It's going to be a very explosive and exciting game. Bishop e3. This is the start of the Yugoslav attack. Bishop g7. Castles. And now you have queen d2. Now, just looking at the formation here shows that White wants to, or White can, swing the bishop over to h6 and try to trade off Black's dark square bishop, because it's very powerful. Then he can play h4, g4, h5, and try to rip open the h-file. So you can already see how the position is starting to play itself out. Knight c6, bishop c4, and right here, Fischer believed that this setup was so powerful that even weak players could beat grandmasters with it. Because basically, what he felt was you do the same things that I mentioned before about the bishop or pushing the h-pawn and ripping open the h-file, and then Fischer's great saying that everyone knows, sack, sack, mate. Knight captures, bishop captures, bishop e6, hits the bishop retreats to b3, queen a5, queenside castles, and here b5 is played by Larsen. This is a very aggressive way to play. He's basically trying to disrupt the knight on c3 and basically open up White's king side. Instead of playing b5, bishop b3 here is another continuation of how this line can be played out. but it doesn't promise black too much. C takes b3, rook fc8, king b1, and even though white has the doubled pawns and part of his king side is a little exposed with the c2 pawn no longer covering the king, black really doesn't have too much here, and white would be pretty comfortable. So Larsen didn't want to play this continuation here. He decided that b5 would be more explosive and be more promising. So then king b1, b4, and which is hitting the knight. Larsen's playing very aggressively. Knight d5, bishop captures, and here you have bishop captures back, hitting the rook. Now, there was a different continuation here. Instead of playing the bishop captures bishop, Fischer could have played e takes, and this was actually a little bit better. But at the time, all of this stuff had not been worked out. Nowadays, the GMs and the professional chess players, they know what the best lines are for white and black. And at the time, they just did not know. It hadn't been worked out. So e takes d5 was a little bit better positionally. White would have been left off a little bit better. Let's go ahead and play a few moves. Queen b5 with the intentions of pushing the a pawn. Queen d3. This is offering the queen trade. Queens get traded. Rook fc8 and then rook e1. And at this moment here, white is just a little bit better positionally. That pawn there on e7 is backwards, and white can play and use that as a target. White has the bishop pair, and black doesn't really have too much counterplay. You know, the bishops here is holding down the fort over here on the king side. So this is just not a lot to play for black. And it would have been better for white. But Fischer didn't play that way. He played bishop captures instead. That hits the rook there on a8. So the rook swings over to c8. And at this moment here, instead of playing rook a c8, Larsen could have took the bishop by playing knight captures bishop. And during the game, he saw that this was probably the best continuation. This was the best line for black, but it would lead to a very drawish position, and Larsen did not want any draws. He felt like he needed a win, or he wanted a win. He wanted to play for a win. Fischer, again, was only 15 years old, and he just did not want to settle for a draw. So if we go ahead and see how this line would have played out, or might have continued, you would have bishop captures bishop, knight c3 check, that opens up the king, rook a b8, which is threatening the discovered check on the king, c takes b4, queen takes, and now you have a position where the pieces are getting traded off. At least one pair of the rooks is going to be traded off, and this is just going to be a very drawish position here, especially for the powerful players of the caliber of Fischer and Larsen. This is probably going to lead to a draw. Larsen saw this, he visualized this during the game, and he did not want to go down this route. So instead of doing all of that and going down that line, instead he played rook a c8, which is a little bit riskier, and it doesn't trade off the pieces, and he still has some winning chances, he felt. But Bobby Fischer said, you know, at this moment, he felt like he had a winning position. He felt like he had the game pretty much wrapped up, actually, especially after he was able to save his bishop, because Larsen did not capture his bishop on d5, so he retreated it back to b3. Now, Fischer felt like his bishop pair would protect his king side. So he felt like there was no way for black to infiltrate his king side. And even if Larsen was going to play like a5, a4, he felt like that was too slow. So Fischer felt like now he can concentrate on the king side over here and go ahead and get his attack off. So he felt like the position was pretty much almost won, and this is where he came up with his sack mate. He just wants to pry open the H file, sack some pieces, and black will be mated. Rook c7, h4 with the intentions of opening up the H file. Nowadays, players play h5 usually immediately after white plays h4. But to slow down the white attack. It doesn't stop it. White can still get it off with g4 and things like that and rip open the king side, but at least it slows it down. But back then, they wasn't really playing that way. So Larsen played queen b5 because he wants to play a5, a4, h5, rook fc8, h takes g6, h takes g6, and now the H file is ripped open. White wants to do damage over there. G4, a5, and it feels like a race. Who's going to win? G5, knight h5. Now right here, I want you to pause the video and see what move you would play for white. What's the best continuation for white? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play what Fischer played. Rook captures knight. That's right. The whole sack mate. So he's giving up the exchange to pry open black's king side. G takes h. Now you have g6, opening up more lines. You have the bishop and pawn on f7. You have the bishop ready to capture black's dark square bishop there, his best defender. e5. This is a good move here because it tries to close up some of the open diagonals there, leading to black's king side. G takes f7, check. King f8, bishop e3. Now you have d5, and this allows black to capture the pawn on f7, because that's a very dangerous pawn there. E takes d5, black captures that pawn, but unfortunately Larsen's king side is totally obliterated. He has no pawn cover. It's going to be very, very hard for him to survive with no cover. d6. Now Fischer's pawn is only 2 squares away from promotion. The rook is being hit as well. Rook f6. Bishop g5 hits the rook again. And now Larsen played queen b7. And he's going to give up the exchange there. He's going to give up the rook here for the bishop because it's just too hard to defend everything. The pawn is still marching up the board. You've got these open diagonals. The queen is ready to infiltrate any moment. I mean, it's just very, very tough for Larsen to defend everything. Bishop takes f6. Bishop captures back. And now you have d7. So the pawn is threatening to capture the rook, and it's only 1 square away from promoting. Rook d8. Queen d6, and Larsen actually resigned right here. He's totally lost. There's checkmate coming very, very soon. If he plays bishop e7 to block the check, then you have queen h6, checkmate. Going back, if he moves the king out the way to get out of check, then you have rook g1 check. Queen captures bishop. Queen takes d7, threatening a battery. Checkmate here on d1. but it's too late for that because then you have queen g6, followed by queen h6 check, queen blocks, but then you have queen f6 check, followed by checkmate. So with that, Fischer ended up coming in a tie for 4th place in this tournament, and that qualified him for the 1959 Candidates Tournament. Remember, he was only 15 years old at this time. He was facing the greats like Tigran Petrosian, Michael Tall, Smyslov, Gligoric, Paul Benko, Paul Karras. So he was playing like the greats of the greats back then, and at 15 years old, and he was holding his own. So kudos to Fischer, for playing a spectacular game against the Sicilian Dragon, and for coining the whole phrase "sack sack mate." It's still used today. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to comment, like, and please subscribe. Till next time.